Today, I want to talk to you about something that separates the successful from the unsuccessful, the fulfilled from the frustrated, and that is consistency. We live in a world where starting is easy. Everyone has big dreams, goals, and plans. But staying consistent, showing up every single day, whether you feel like it or not, that's where the battle is won. Let me be honest with you. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel inspired. But if you can master one thing, just one, the ability to force yourself to be consistent, you will become unstoppable. Consistency is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It's waking up early when you're tired. It's showing up when others quit. It's doing your best when no one is watching. Champions are not made on the days they feel great. They are made on the days they want to quit but don't. So if you want real progress, if you want real results, you have to force yourself to be consistent. That means creating habits, building discipline, ignoring distractions, and showing up even when every part of you wants to give up. Remember, success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't rely on motivation. Create discipline. Build momentum. Show up. Do the work. Motivation is a powerful emotion. It can surge through you after watching a video, reading a book, or attending a seminar. It can make you feel like you're ready to change your life, to conquer everything in your path. But motivation, as powerful as it feels, is temporary. It fades, it burns out. It doesn't last through the tough days, the boring moments, or the mental fog. That's why relying on motivation alone is one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to build consistency. Motivation is like a spark. It ignites something inside of you, but if you don't feed that spark with the right habits, discipline, and structure, it dies out. Think about how many New Year's resolutions are abandoned by February. It's not because people didn't care or didn't want to change. It's because they depended on their feelings to guide their actions, and feelings are unpredictable. Discipline, on the other hand, is not about how you feel. It's about what you decide to do, regardless of how you feel. Discipline is what keeps you going when the excitement is gone. It's waking up at 5 a.m. when the bed feels warm and the alarm feels cruel. It's going to the gym when your muscles are sore, or showing up to work when your mind is tired. Discipline doesn't ask if you're in the mood. It commands action based on your commitment, not your comfort. The truth is, you will not always feel inspired. You will have days where you feel tired, days where you feel defeated, days where you doubt yourself. Those are the moments when motivation is nowhere to be found, but those are also the moments when discipline steps in. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your reality. It doesn't care if you're excited. It only cares that you show up. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's harsh, robotic, or cold. But discipline is actually a form of self-respect. When you practice discipline, you are telling yourself, my long-term goals are more important than my short-term comfort. You are showing up for the person you want to become, not just the person you are today. That is real power, and it's a power that doesn't disappear with your mood. Let's be clear, motivation can help you start, but discipline is what helps you finish. Everyone can start a new workout routine, a new project, or a new habit. The real test is whether you can keep going after the excitement wears off. That's where 99% of people fall off. They chase the high of motivation and stop when it's gone. But consistency demands more. It demands that you build a system where your actions don't depend on inspiration, they depend on integrity. There's something deeply liberating about not needing to be in the mood to act. Once you internalize that discipline can guide your life better than motivation ever will, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of waiting to feel ready. Readiness is a lie. No one ever truly feels ready to change their life. They just start, and they stick with it. That's discipline. Consider elite athletes, top performers, successful entrepreneurs. What they all have in common is a level of consistency that isn't based on emotion. They train, perform, and execute according to a schedule, not a mood. They don't ask themselves whether they feel like doing the hard thing. They just do it because they've learned that discipline is a habit, not a feeling. Another important distinction is that motivation tends to be external, while discipline is deeply internal. Motivation can be triggered by something outside of you, a speech, a video, an inspiring story. But discipline is something you build from the inside out. It's cultivated through repetition, through holding yourself accountable, and through refusing to break promises to yourself. Building discipline takes time. It's uncomfortable. It often feels unnatural in the beginning. But every time you act with discipline, you're casting a vote for the identity of someone who doesn't quit, someone who follows through, someone who gets things done no matter the mood. And the more votes you cast for that identity, the more naturally discipline becomes your default. Eventually, your brain learns that certain actions are non-negotiable. Just like brushing your teeth or taking a shower, your mind begins to accept that your goals aren't up for debate. Whether you feel motivated or not, you get to work. And that, right there, is how winners are made, not by chasing constant motivation, but by building unshakable discipline, so next time you don't feel like doing the thing you said you'd do, remind yourself, this is exactly where most people give up. This is where motivation fades. But if you push through, if you force yourself to be consistent through discipline, you rise above the crowd. You step into the mindset of someone who finishes what they start. We often think that real transformation comes from grand gestures, big leaps, massive efforts, and overnight success. But the truth is, the most profound change happens in the smallest, quietest actions, repeated consistently over time. It's not the huge, one-time acts that shape your future. It's the tiny daily choices, the ones that seem almost insignificant in the moment, that build your life. Doing 10 push-ups every day might not seem like much. Reading 10 pages of a book might feel small. Spending 5 minutes meditating might not seem impactful. But do that every day for a year, and you've done 650 push-ups, read 650 pages, and spent 30 hours training your mind. Those numbers are life-changing, and they came from simple, repeated actions that required no extraordinary effort on any single day. The key is to understand the compound effect. Just like money grows when you invest a little bit consistently over time, your habits grow the same way. One small decision may not move the needle today, but it builds momentum. It creates a foundation. It stacks on top of yesterday's progress and paves the way for tomorrow's improvement. This is where most people go wrong. They underestimate the value of small actions. They think, what difference does it make if I skip one workout? Or it's just one unhealthy meal, it won't hurt. And while it's true that a single choice won't ruin you, it's also true that one small choice repeated in the wrong direction leads to bad patterns, broken confidence, and eventually regret. On the flip side, those small, positive actions may feel boring. They may feel slow. They may not give you instant gratification. But that's what makes them powerful. They're not designed to feel exciting. They're designed to build strength, discipline, and endurance over time. They're like laying one brick a day. It doesn't look like a house today, but a year from now, you'll look back and realize you built a fortress. Consistency is far more important than intensity. Anyone can go hard for a day or two. Anyone can crush a workout once or read a book in a weekend, but not everyone can show up daily, especially when life gets chaotic, when stress hits, or when the initial excitement wears off. It's in those moments that your commitment to small, daily actions defines you. There's something incredibly empowering about realizing that you don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to overhaul your entire life in one day. You just need to show up today. You need to take one step. Drink one more glass of water, send one email, write one paragraph, learn one new thing. It's the accumulation of these steps that takes you further than any dramatic sprint ever could. Think of a glacier. It moves incredibly slowly, almost imperceptibly, but over time it carves mountains, reshapes landscapes, and alters the environment around it. That's what your daily habits do to your life. Each action is a subtle, almost invisible force, but done repeatedly, it reshapes your identity, your mindset, and your outcomes. The beauty of small actions is that they are sustainable. You don't burn out doing 5 minutes of journaling a day. You don't need extraordinary willpower to walk 10 minutes after dinner. These are achievable goals, and because they are doable, you are more likely to repeat them. That's how habits form, not from huge demands on your energy, but from easy wins that build trust in yourself. Another overlooked benefit is that small actions reduce resistance. Starting something big often triggers anxiety, perfectionism, or fear of failure. But small actions are disarming. They bypass your brain's defense systems. They allow you to start, and once you start, it's much easier to keep going. A 5-minute task often turns into 15, then 30, but only if you make it approachable in the beginning. When you do something small every day, you're not just building skill, you're building identity. You're telling yourself, this is who I am. I'm someone who shows up. I'm someone who puts in the work, even in small doses. That identity shift is more powerful than any goal. Because once your actions align with your identity, change becomes natural, it becomes inevitable. So when in doubt, go small, shrink the task, break it down, but do not skip it. Small steps done every day compound into big wins. That's the secret to real progress, not bursts of effort followed by collapse, but steady, committed action that you force yourself to take every single day. One of the most common reasons people fail to stay consistent is because their goals are vague. They say things like, I want to get in shape, I want to be successful, or I want to improve my life. While these statements express a desire for progress, they lack clarity, and without clarity there is no direction. Without direction there is no plan, and without a plan, consistency becomes nearly impossible. Setting clear and specific goals is like programming a GPS. You can't reach a destination if you don't know where you're going. The more specific your goal, the more your brain can create a focused path to achieve it. Saying, I want to exercise, is not the same as saying, I will go to the gym at 6 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 45 minutes. The second version gives your mind something to lock onto a measurable, concrete action. Vagueness is the enemy of action. When you say you want to be more productive, what does that actually mean? Do you want to complete more tasks, spend less time on your phone, wake up earlier? Without specifics, your goal becomes a moving target, and that leads to frustration, inconsistency, and ultimately, failure. Your goals must be precise, or your efforts will scatter in too many directions with too little impact. Clarity fuels commitment. When you define what you want with precision, it's easier to build routines around that objective. It also becomes easier to say no to distractions. If your goal is to write 500 words every day before 10 a.m., you have a framework. You know what success looks like each day. You know when you've done enough, and you know when you haven't. That sense of structure breeds discipline. Another powerful effect of specific goals is accountability. Vague goals are easy to escape. If you told yourself you wanted to eat healthier, you can justify almost anything. But if your goal is to eat 3 servings of vegetables and drink 2 liters of water daily, the result is trackable. It's either done or it's not, and that kind of tracking invites honesty not just with others, but with yourself. Clarity also helps you prioritize. Life is busy, and you will always have competing demands for your time and energy. If your goals aren't specific, you'll get pulled in every direction. But when you know exactly what you're trying to achieve, you can make better choices about how you spend your time. Specific goals allow you to filter your day. If it doesn't move you closer to your goal, it can wait or it can go. When your goals are clear, it's easier to reverse. Engineer them into daily actions. Want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months? That breaks down into a calorie deficit, a workout schedule, a hydration plan. Want to launch a business in 6 months? That becomes a list of weekly tasks, market research, product development, branding, outreach. Specific goals break the mountain down into manageable steps. Without specific goals, progress becomes invisible. And when you can't see progress, it's hard to stay motivated. On the other hand, when your goals are broken into specific milestones, you can see your own growth. You can check things off, track your improvement, and celebrate real wins, even small ones. That feeling of progress becomes a fuel source for consistency. Clarity also strengthens your emotional connection to your goals. When you know exactly what you're aiming for, it's easier to visualize it, to imagine the outcome, to stay emotionally invested. If your goal is to save $5,000 in 6 months, you can picture that number. You can imagine the security, the opportunities it might create, the relief it might bring, and when your heart is attached to the outcome, your feet keep moving. Setting specific goals doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out from day one. It means you commit to defining the next target, and then the next. Goals can evolve. They can grow and shift. But they must always remain clear in the moment. Otherwise, your focus fades and your actions lose their edge. Specific goals also give you something powerful to measure. What gets measured gets improved. If you know your goal is to run a 5K in under 30 minutes, then every training session becomes an opportunity to refine your strategy. You can test different routines, track your times, adjust your nutrition, and gradually shave off the minutes. But without that clear benchmark, your practice becomes guesswork. Finally, specific goals bring intentionality to your life. They help you live on purpose instead of by default. They force you to think, to plan, to act with direction. They remove the fog and replace it with focus. And when you live with focus, you live with power, power to control your outcomes, power to stay consistent, power to become the person you are meant to be. One of the most effective ways to build consistency and stay committed to your goals is to track your progress. It may seem like a small step, something you could easily skip, but tracking is what turns vague ambition into measurable achievement. Without a way to observe your progress, your effort feels invisible, and invisible effort often leads to invisible motivation. When you track your progress, you create a visual representation of your consistency. It's no longer just about what you think you're doing, it's about what you can see, count, and reflect on. Whether it's a notebook, an app, a spreadsheet, or a wall calendar, having a system that shows your effort builds both awareness and accountability. You can't manage what you don't measure. Think about trying to lose weight, improve your fitness, save money, or write a book. These goals are all long-term, and the results don't appear overnight. Without tracking, it's easy to feel like you're not getting anywhere. But when you keep a record logging your workouts, counting your savings, marking your word count, you create evidence that you're moving forward. That evidence builds confidence. Tracking also creates momentum. Each time you check off a completed task or record a milestone, you're reinforcing your own success. A simple X on the calendar or a tick on a habit tracker might seem small, but over time, those marks build a visual streak, a pattern that encourages you to keep going. It taps into the psychology of momentum. Once you've done something several days in a row, you don't want to break the chain. Moreover, tracking your progress introduces objectivity into your journey. We're emotional creatures, and our moods can distort our perception of how well we're doing. On a bad day, you might feel like you're failing, but if you look at your tracker and see consistent effort for the past 2 weeks, you'll realize your feelings aren't always accurate. This kind of clarity is powerful because it keeps your emotions from derailing your progress. Tracking also helps you notice patterns. You begin to see what days you're most productive, which environments help you thrive, or where you're slipping. For example, you might discover that you tend to skip workouts on Wednesdays or procrastinate more in the afternoons. Once you're aware of these patterns, you can adjust your strategy, your schedule, or your mindset. Tracking helps you become your own coach. Another overlooked benefit of progress tracking is that it forces reflection. At the end of a week or month, you can look back at your data and ask, what worked? What didn't? What should I change? This reflection turns action into insight. Without tracking, you're just doing, but with tracking, you're learning. You become smarter, more strategic, and more intentional about your efforts. Tracking also keeps your goals in your daily awareness. It's easy to set a goal and then forget about it 2 weeks later when life gets busy. But when you're actively tracking progress, your goals stay in front of you. They become a part of your routine, part of your consciousness. You're reminded every day of what you're working toward and why it matters. That constant exposure keeps your vision alive. It also gives you something to celebrate. Progress tracking isn't just about staying on track, it's about recognizing how far you've come. Far too often, we're so focused on the finish line that we ignore the road we've already walked. But when you look at your record and see weeks of effort, it reminds you that you are growing, you are evolving, and you are capable. That recognition boosts morale and fuels the desire to continue. For those who struggle with self-doubt, progress tracking can be especially transformative. It creates proof that you are not lazy, that you are not stuck, that you are doing the work. Every note, every check mark, every entry is a record of your commitment, and when you begin to trust in your own effort, your self-belief expands. You begin to see yourself not as someone trying, but as someone becoming. Tracking your progress also brings clarity to your time and energy. If you're doing the work but not seeing the results you want, your tracker can help identify where you need to improve. Are you doing the right tasks? Are you consistent with intensity? Are there gaps in your routine? Instead of guessing, you can diagnose your strategy and refine it for better results. Finally, progress tracking transforms your journey into a system rather than a series of disconnected efforts. It brings order to chaos. It gives your actions structure and rhythm, and over time, it builds an internal sense of accountability. You begin to take pride in filling out your tracker, in seeing the streak grow, in showing yourself that you're capable of showing up day after day, no matter what. Consistency does not survive in a cluttered, chaotic environment. One of the most overlooked secrets to staying consistent is the ability to eliminate distractions ruthlessly. We live in a world full of noise, constant notifications, endless content, messages vying for our attention, and 1,000 options competing for our time. If you're not intentional about cutting out distractions, they will consume you before you even realize it. Every time you get distracted, you lose momentum. Focus is a fragile state, and once broken, it takes time to rebuild. According to cognitive research, it can take 20 to 25 minutes to fully regain deep concentration after an interruption. Multiply that by the number of daily distractions, texts, emails, social media, background noise, and it becomes clear why people struggle to stay consistent. They're not lazy, they're just constantly pulled away from what matters. To become consistent, you must learn to protect your attention like a valuable asset, because that's exactly what it is. Time is not your most limited resource, attention is. You can have all the time in the world, but if your mind is scattered, it won't matter. You won't make progress, you won't build habits, and you certainly won't stay consistent. The best performers in any field are not just skilled, they are focused. They know how to say no. Distractions are subtle and sneaky. They don't always show up as dramatic interruptions. Sometimes they masquerade as productive tasks, checking email just for a minute, scrolling through news updates, organizing your desk, or switching between tasks constantly. These are all disguised distractions. They pull you out of the present moment and rob you of the deep, focused work that consistency demands. To eliminate distractions, you must first identify them honestly. What are the things that consistently pull you away from your goals? What apps, websites, people, or habits interrupt your flow? Once you identify them, take action. Use app blockers. Set your phone to do not disturb. Create a clean, quiet space for work. Schedule time for focus and treat it like a sacred appointment. If you don't defend your focus, no one else will. This isn't just about technology. It's also about mental distractions, overthinking, worrying, multitasking, jumping from one idea to another without ever settling into a rhythm. The mind can be its own worst enemy. That's why it's important to practice focus, building techniques, meditation, journaling, deep breathing, or even simply writing down your top 3 priorities each morning. Clear your mind before you begin, or it will clutter your effort. Some distractions come from your environment, but others come from people. Negative people, needy friends, drama, filled conversations, these can all drain your energy and derail your focus. If someone constantly interrupts your time, disrespects your boundaries, or adds chaos to your schedule, it's okay and necessary to distance yourself. Protecting your space isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's the cost of staying consistent. Distractions also grow in power when we lack structure. When your days are unplanned, every shiny object becomes a temptation. But when you operate from a schedule, even a loose one, you create intention. You know what you're supposed to be doing and when. This makes it easier to spot distractions as they arise and consciously return to your task. The goal isn't to be rigid, but to be aware and deliberate. The ability to focus is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. At first, sitting still for 30 minutes without checking your phone might feel uncomfortable. That's normal, but over time your brain adapts. It learns how to stay in the zone longer. You begin to crave the peace of deep work instead of the chaos of constant stimulation. That shift is life changing, and it only comes through repeated practice. You also need to recognize that distraction often comes from avoidance. Sometimes we welcome distractions because we don't want to face the discomfort of effort. We'd rather scroll than study, chat than confront, watch videos than build something meaningful. But if you always run from difficulty, you'll never grow. Part of eliminating distraction is developing the courage to stay with the task, even when it's boring, uncomfortable, or hard. To truly eliminate distractions, you must develop a mindset of focus as a form of self-respect. When you focus on what matters, you're telling yourself that your goals are worth it, that your time is valuable, that your dreams deserve your full attention. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. That's when consistency takes root in a life that's aligned, clear, and protected from the chaos of distraction. Finally, remember this: distraction is not just about what you're avoiding, it's about what you're missing. Every time you give in to a distraction, you rob yourself of a moment of progress, a piece of growth, a step toward the life you want. That's the real cost. And when you fully grasp that, you begin to eliminate distractions not because you have to, but because you refuse to delay your potential one more day. One of the biggest threats to consistency is the myth that every moment needs to feel exciting. We live in a world that glorifies novelty, new goals, new trends, new hacks, new beginnings. But the truth is, real progress is born in the mundane. It's shaped by routines that repeat day after day, often without praise, without dramatic breakthroughs, and without much visible change. If you want to be consistent, you must learn to embrace boredom and repetition. Consistency demands that you show up when it's not exciting. It demands that you write even when the words don't flow, train even when your body feels tired, study even when you're not motivated. That's where the transformation happens, not in the grand, intense moments, but in the quiet ones, when no one's watching and your only competition is the person you were yesterday. Boredom is not your enemy, it's a signal that you're on the right path. It's the moment you begin to settle into a rhythm. Repetition is not a sign of stagnation, it's the foundation of mastery. Think about anyone who is great at what they do: athletes, musicians, writers, entrepreneurs. Their greatness didn't come from constant excitement. It came from thousands of hours doing the same drills, practicing the same notes, refining the same skills over and over again. But most people don't want repetition, they want variety. They want something new every day. They chase motivation instead of building discipline. That's why they start strong and fade fast. They haven't trained themselves to stay steady through the boredom. They haven't learned how to find value in repetition. But once you realize that boring equals building, your whole perspective shifts. Repetition creates muscle memory, not just in the body, but in the mind. When you do something over and over, it becomes second nature. It stops being a decision and starts being a habit. The action becomes automatic. You no longer have to fight yourself every time. That's what consistency is: removing the friction from action, so doing the right thing becomes the path of least resistance. Boredom is where resilience is built. When the thrill wears off and the reality sets in, that's the point where most people quit. But if you can push through that phase, if you can learn to sit with boredom without running from it, you unlock a deeper level of growth. You begin to prove to yourself that you're not just committed when it's convenient. You're committed no matter what. The brain is wired to seek novelty. It rewards new experiences with dopamine, a feel-good chemical that lights up our reward system. That's why distractions are so tempting. But the brain also learns through delayed gratification the discipline to do what's necessary now for a bigger reward later. Boredom is the cost of that reward. Repetition is the currency. Most people aren't willing to pay it. Be the exception. There's also a quiet beauty in repetition. The more you do something, the more you notice its subtle details. A writer who writes daily learns the nuances of language. A musician who practices daily begins to hear tones others miss. A coder who builds daily understands patterns others overlook. Repetition deepens your awareness. It gives you access to layers of mastery that stay hidden to the casual participant. In a world that rewards speed and stimulation, consistency feels slow and silent. But that's where the real power lies. Boredom isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're sticking to something long enough to make it count. Every time you repeat the same routine, you're laying bricks. One day you'll look back and realize you built a fortress not by chasing the new, but by repeating the necessary. People think success is about intensity, working 12-hour days, grinding endlessly. But real success comes from doing small things well, repeatedly, for a long time. That's what builds habits. That's what forms identity. It's not glamorous, but it's effective. The gym sessions that count are the ones you almost skipped. The pages that matter most are the ones you wrote when you didn't feel like it. Boredom is proof that you're in it for the long haul. You must also separate boredom from burnout. Burnout comes from doing too much with too little rest, but boredom comes from doing the right things with patience. When you're bored, it doesn't mean you need to quit. It might mean you're right where you're supposed to be. It might mean you're on the verge of breaking through. The plateau often comes right before the progress. Don't run from it, push through it. Finally, embracing boredom is an act of maturity. It's saying, I don't need to be entertained, I need to grow. It's choosing depth over distraction. It's understanding that repetition is not a punishment, it's a privilege. Every time you repeat the work, you reinforce who you are becoming, and that identity built slowly, quietly, with patience is what consistency is all about. One of the greatest killers of consistency is unrealistic expectations. When people set out to pursue a goal, they often begin with a powerful burst of motivation. In that moment, they feel invincible, convinced they'll overhaul their habits, transform their lives, and stick with it no matter what. But soon, reality sets in. The weight of the change becomes heavier than anticipated. The fantasy of overnight results collides with the truth, progress is slow, and when expectations don't match reality, frustration sets in. That frustration leads to quitting. Setting realistic expectations is not about lowering your standards. It's about aligning your goals with the nature of long-term success. Growth doesn't happen in a straight line. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, and other days you'll feel like you're going backward. Consistency isn't about always making big leaps. It's about continuing to take small steps, even when the journey feels uncertain. You can only commit to those steps if your expectations are honest. Many people struggle because they expect perfection. They expect to follow their routine flawlessly, never miss a day, never lose momentum. But perfection is a trap. It sets you up to feel like a failure the moment life interrupts your plans. Real consistency is not about being perfect. It's about being persistent despite imperfection. Setbacks are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're human. When you set realistic expectations, you give yourself room to breathe. You accept that progress will come in waves. You understand that growth includes plateaus, detours, and even regressions. This mindset allows you to stay steady during the hard days, knowing they're part of the process. Without that understanding, every difficult moment feels like a crisis, and consistency cannot survive constant emotional turmoil. Unrealistic expectations also breed impatience. When you expect fast results, you become discouraged when they don't arrive on schedule. But impatience leads to inconsistency. You start skipping steps, cutting corners, or jumping from one method to another in search of a shortcut. Setting realistic expectations means making peace with delayed gratification. It means trusting the process, even when you can't yet see the results. Another aspect of setting realistic expectations is being honest about your current capabilities. Many people start new routines by overcommitting. They say they'll work out for 2 hours every day, write 5,000 words a day, or read a book every week. But when life pushes back, they burn out. Instead of aiming for the maximum, start with the minimum viable effort, the amount you can sustain consistently. It's better to start small and build up than to start big and crash. Realistic expectations also include accepting that progress won't always feel exciting. There will be weeks when nothing changes outwardly. The scale won't move. Your skill won't noticeably improve. Your energy might feel flat. These are the moments when people often give up, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they expected something else. When you know to expect this flatness, you don't panic. You stay consistent. Consistency thrives when the emotional highs and lows are leveled out. This happens when you stop expecting every day to feel amazing. Motivation will come and go, focus will fluctuate, life will happen. But if your expectations are grounded, you won't rely on fleeting emotions to stay on track. You'll rely on systems, discipline, and perspective, all of which are strengthened by realistic thinking. Setting realistic expectations also applies to your environment. You may want to read a book a week, but if you have a demanding job, a young family, or health challenges, that may not be sustainable. Adjust your expectations to fit your life, not your ideal fantasy. That doesn't mean you're making excuses, it means you're designing your goals to succeed. And that's the smartest way to stay consistent. Another critical factor in setting realistic expectations is understanding the compounding effect of effort. The results you want won't show up tomorrow, but they will show up if you stay the course. One workout won't transform your body, one day of writing won't finish your book, but stack 100 days of effort and suddenly you're living in a different reality. Progress is invisible at first, and your expectations must account for that. When you expect fast change, you won't stick around long enough to see slow change work. That's the irony. People quit because the results are too slow, not realizing that they were actually on track the entire time. But if they had expected progress to take months or even years, they would have stayed the course. The difference isn't in talent, it's in timeline awareness. The longer your horizon, the more likely you'll win. Lastly, realistic expectations foster a sense of self-compassion. When you're not measuring yourself against impossible standards, you begin to appreciate your effort rather than criticize your flaws. You begin to trust the journey rather than judge it. That creates emotional stability, and emotional stability is the soil where consistency grows best. You're not just chasing goals, you're building a mindset that can sustain them. One of the most crucial steps to forcing yourself to be consistent is to create a routine that fits your lifestyle. Many people make the mistake of adopting routines or habits that feel completely foreign or unrealistic given their current circumstances. They attempt to imitate someone else's schedule or try to squeeze in activities at times when their energy is low, their responsibilities are high, or their environment is not supportive. When a routine feels out of sync with your life, it becomes a burden, and burdens don't last. Consistency thrives in routines that are customized and sustainable. This means understanding your own rhythms, priorities, and constraints, and designing a daily or weekly plan that complements them rather than conflicts with them. For example, if you're a morning person, waking up early to exercise or work on your goals might be natural. But if you're more alert in the evenings, forcing yourself to do heavy work in the morning will only lead to frustration and burnout. Creating a routine that fits your lifestyle starts with self-awareness. This means observing when your energy peaks and dips during the day, understanding your work and family commitments, and identifying the environments where you focus best. Without this awareness, you might build a routine based on wishful thinking or external expectations rather than your actual needs. Your routine should be a reflection of your real life, not an idealized version. Another important aspect is flexibility. Life is unpredictable. Emergencies, social events, health issues, and changing priorities can disrupt even the best plans. When your routine is rigid and unforgiving, these disruptions become sources of guilt and discouragement. But a routine that has built-in flexibility allows you to adapt without feeling like you've failed. It acknowledges that consistency isn't about perfection, it's about persistence over time. A routine that fits your lifestyle also means pacing yourself. It's better to start with small, manageable blocks of time dedicated to your goals than to attempt marathon sessions that drain your energy and motivation. For example, instead of committing to write for 3 hours straight, you might start with 20 or 30 minutes a day. This makes the routine easier to maintain and less intimidating, increasing the likelihood that you will stick with it. When designing your routine, it helps to prioritize your most important tasks during your peak hours. Everyone has times of the day when they feel most alert and productive. Scheduling your hardest or most critical work during these periods maximizes your efficiency and reduces resistance. For less demanding tasks, or for recovery and rest, reserve the times when your energy naturally wanes. This alignment with your natural rhythms is key to sustainability. Your environment is another critical factor in creating a routine that works. If your space is cluttered, noisy, or full of distractions, it will be much harder to stick to your routine. Create a dedicated area for your work or practice, one that signals to your brain that it's time to focus. When your environment supports your routine, you reduce friction and increase the chances of consistency. Technology can be a double-edged sword when it comes to routine. On one hand, tools like calendars, reminders, and habit trackers can help you stay on course. On the other hand, constant notifications and digital distractions can derail your focus. Be intentional about how you use technology in your routine. Turn off non-essential alerts. Use apps that support habit building, and schedule time blocks where you disconnect from devices to fully engage with your tasks. Another important consideration is the balance between work and rest. A routine that is too demanding without adequate breaks can lead to burnout, while too much downtime can cause stagnation. Finding the right balance is essential for long-term consistency. Incorporate rest periods, physical movement, and activities that recharge you mentally and emotionally. A balanced routine keeps your body and mind in optimal condition. It's also essential to recognize the power of small wins within your routine. When you design your day with achievable goals and celebrate the completion of tasks, you build momentum. These small victories reinforce positive behavior and make the routine feel rewarding. Over time, they accumulate and lead to significant progress, fueling your motivation to continue. Accountability can be woven into your routine as well. Sharing your schedule with a friend, joining a group with similar goals, or having a coach can provide external support that strengthens your commitment. When others know about your routine, you're more likely to follow through, especially on days when your own motivation wanes. Finally, remember that routines are not set in stone. Life evolves, and so should your routine. Regularly review and adjust your schedule to reflect your changing needs, goals, and circumstances. This ongoing refinement keeps your routine relevant, realistic, and aligned with your lifestyle, making it easier to maintain consistency over the long haul. One of the most powerful tools to maintain consistency is to track your progress regularly. When you commit to a goal or a habit, it's easy to lose sight of how far you've come, especially because progress often happens gradually and can be difficult to perceive on a day-to-day basis. Without tracking, you may feel like you're stuck or not moving forward, which can sap your motivation and make you more likely to give up. Tracking your progress helps you create a clear picture of your journey. It turns vague feelings into concrete evidence. For example, if you're trying to write a book, logging your daily word count reveals the cumulative impact of your effort. Each small step adds up, and seeing those numbers grow provides a sense of achievement that keeps you going. Without this data, you might underestimate your accomplishments or fail to recognize patterns. Regular progress tracking also introduces accountability, even if it's just to yourself. When you know that you will review your actions at the end of the day or week, you become more deliberate about your choices. This kind of accountability creates a feedback loop. You make an effort, check your results, learn from them, and adjust your approach accordingly. This cycle is essential for growth and staying consistent. Moreover, tracking progress can help you identify obstacles or plateaus before they become discouraging roadblocks. Sometimes you might hit a period where progress seems to stall. Instead of guessing why, you can review your records to find clues. Are you skipping certain days? Is your effort inconsistent? Are there external factors interfering? By pinpointing the problem, you can take corrective action early, keeping your momentum alive. Many people underestimate the emotional benefit of seeing progress. Progress tracking taps into a psychological principle called the progress effect. When people see evidence of advancement, no matter how small, it triggers positive feelings and reinforces their motivation. Even on tough days, these positive signals remind you that your work is meaningful and moving you forward. How you track your progress depends on your goal and what works for you personally. Some people prefer simple methods like crossing off days on a calendar or using a journal to write daily reflections. Others might use apps, spreadsheets, or specialized trackers that allow for more detailed data collection. The key is to find a system that is easy to maintain and provides the insights you need without becoming a chore. Consistency in tracking is just as important as consistency in action. It doesn't help if you track sporadically because the picture will be incomplete and less useful. Establish a routine where you check your progress at regular intervals daily, weekly, or monthly depending on your objective. This rhythm creates a habit of reflection and course correction that supports long-term consistency. Tracking also allows you to celebrate milestones. When you recognize that you've hit a certain number of days in a row, completed a set amount of work, or improved a skill, it boosts your confidence. These celebrations don't need to be grand. A simple acknowledgement or reward can reinforce your commitment and make the journey more enjoyable. Progress tracking turns consistency from a chore into a source of pride. Another benefit of tracking progress is that it helps you stay objective. When emotions run high, frustration, doubt, impatience, it's easy to lose perspective. You might feel like you've done nothing, but your tracked data says otherwise. This objectivity can prevent unnecessary discouragement and keep you grounded in reality, where persistence pays off. Tracking progress can also reveal patterns about your productivity and habits. You might notice that certain times of day are more productive, or that you do better after certain routines or rituals. This insight allows you to optimize your approach and create an environment that supports your consistency more effectively. In some cases, tracking progress may highlight that your goals or methods need adjustment. If the data shows stagnation despite your best efforts, it's a sign to rethink your strategy. Tracking is not just about patting yourself on the back. It's also about honest evaluation. Being open to change while staying committed to consistency is a balancing act that tracking facilitates. Finally, tracking progress connects your present actions to your future vision. It makes the long-term rewards more tangible and bridges the gap between effort and outcome. When you see the trajectory of your work, it becomes easier to stay motivated because you realize that each day's consistent effort is building the life or success you desire. One of the most effective strategies to force yourself to be consistent is to use reminders and cues. Our brains are wired to respond to stimuli in our environment, and by leveraging this natural tendency, you can build habits and routines that stick more easily. Reminders and cues act as triggers that prompt you to take the desired action, reducing the need for willpower and conscious effort, which often waxes and wanes throughout the day. When you're trying to establish consistency, it's easy to forget or get distracted by other tasks, especially if the habit you want to build is new or challenging. Reminders serve as gentle nudges that bring your focus back to the task at hand. These cues can be visual, auditory, or even situational, anything that helps you associate a particular stimulus with the action you want to take. For example, placing your workout clothes next to your bed can serve as a visual cue to exercise in the morning. Setting an alarm on your phone to signal writing time or meditation can act as an auditory reminder. Even pairing your new habit with an existing routine, like doing push-ups after brushing your teeth, can create a situational cue that naturally leads to the behavior. These simple but intentional reminders create a web of triggers that guide your behavior. The power of cues lies in their ability to reduce decision fatigue. Every time you have to decide whether or not to do something, your brain expends energy. Over time, this depletes your willpower and makes consistency harder. By automating the trigger, you remove the burden of choice. The action becomes almost automatic because the cue signals it's time to act, making it easier to follow through day after day. Reminders also help to build habit loops, a concept popularized by behavioral psychologists. A habit loop consists of a cue, a routine, the behavior, and a reward. When you consistently respond to a cue with a routine, your brain begins to link the two, creating a mental shortcut. Over time, the routine becomes second nature whenever the cue appears. Using reminders strategically helps solidify these habit loops, making your behavior more ingrained and consistent. Technology offers many tools to create reminders and cues. Calendar notifications, habit, tracking apps, and digital assistants can all be programmed to alert you at specific times or in certain locations. These tools make it easy to maintain consistency, especially when life gets busy and it's hard to keep track of all your goals manually. However, it's important not to rely solely on technology. Physical cues in your environment are equally valuable. Another effective method is environmental design, shaping your surroundings so that cues are naturally embedded in your day. If your goal is to drink more water, keep a bottle within arm's reach. If you want to read more, leave a book on your pillow or coffee table. These intentional changes reduce friction and prompt the desired behavior without extra effort or reminders. It's also crucial to keep your reminders positive and encouraging. Negative or guilt-inducing cues can backfire by creating resistance or anxiety. Instead of reminders that say, "Don't skip your workout," try cues that say, "Time to energize," or "This will make you stronger." Positive framing makes the action more appealing and motivates you to respond willingly. Reminders can also be social, informing friends or family about your goals and asking them to check in with you acts as a form of external cue. Sometimes a simple question like, "Did you do your practice today?" can trigger action. Social accountability reminders tap into our innate desire for connection and approval, which can be powerful motivators. It's important to regularly update and refresh your reminders so they don't become background noise. When cues lose their novelty, your brain may start to ignore them. Changing the type, timing, or form of reminders can keep them effective. For instance, switching from a phone alarm to a sticky note on your mirror can renew your attention and reinforce your commitment. In addition, pairing reminders with reward systems strengthens consistency. When a cue leads to an action that's followed by a small reward, whether intrinsic like a sense of accomplishment or extrinsic like a treat, your brain starts to crave the behavior. Reminders then don't just trigger the habit. They also become linked to positive feelings, increasing the likelihood that you'll repeat the behavior. Finally, remember that reminders and cues are part of a larger system that supports consistency. They are tools to help you build momentum and reduce friction, but need to be paired with realistic expectations, strong motivation, and an adaptable routine. When combined effectively, reminders become the steady beats that keep you moving forward, even on days when motivation is low. One of the most powerful ways to force yourself to be consistent is to create a system of rewards that reinforces your positive behaviors. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and by intentionally linking rewards to your consistent actions, you create a motivation loop that makes it easier to stay committed. Rewards serve as positive reinforcement, encouraging you to repeat the behavior and build lasting habits. When you accomplish a goal or stick to your routine, celebrating that success, even in small ways, can significantly boost your morale. This is especially important during long-term pursuits where the payoff isn't immediate or obvious. Without a reward system, it's easy to lose enthusiasm and momentum. But with rewards, you create moments of joy and satisfaction that fuel your persistence. Rewards can take many forms, and the best kind depends on what resonates with you personally. For some, a reward might be something tangible like a small treat, a favorite snack, or buying something meaningful. For others, the reward may be intangible, such as taking a break to enjoy a hobby, spending time with loved ones, or simply acknowledging their progress with a moment of gratitude. The key is that the reward feels meaningful and desirable. Incorporating rewards into your routine also helps combat the natural resistance we feel toward change. Starting new habits or pushing through difficult days often requires extra effort and discipline. Rewards make the process more enjoyable by providing a positive payoff, making the discomfort or effort worthwhile. This shifts your mindset from "I have to do this" to "I get to do this and earn something good." It's important that rewards are given immediately or shortly after the desired behavior. The closer the reward is to the action, the stronger the association in your brain. Delayed rewards might lose their effectiveness because the connection between action and outcome becomes vague. For example, celebrating completing a week of daily exercise with a special outing on the weekend works well if the reward is planned closely after the week's accomplishment. Another consideration is to avoid rewards that undermine your goals. For instance, if you're trying to eat healthier, rewarding yourself with junk food can create a conflicting message and slow progress. Instead, choose rewards that align with or complement your goals. If your goal is fitness, a relaxing massage or new workout gear can be great motivators. If your goal is productivity, a leisure activity that helps you unwind is a perfect fit. Creating a tiered reward system can be especially effective for long-term consistency. Small, frequent rewards for daily or weekly progress maintain motivation during routine tasks, while larger rewards for milestone achievements keep you focused on the bigger picture. For example, treating yourself to a movie night after a productive week and planning a weekend getaway after reaching a major milestone can provide a balanced mix of incentives. Rewarding yourself also helps build a positive emotional connection to the habit or goal. Over time, this emotional tie can make the behavior more intrinsically motivating. You begin to look forward not only to the reward, but also to the sense of accomplishment and well-being that comes from sticking to your routine. This is when consistency becomes less about external rewards and more about internal satisfaction. It's equally important to celebrate progress, not just perfection. Rewarding yourself only when you hit a perfect target can be discouraging and unrealistic. Instead, acknowledge effort and improvement, no matter how small. This reinforces a growth mindset and keeps you engaged even when things don't go perfectly. Consistency is built on persistence, not flawless execution. Sometimes rewards can be social. Sharing your successes with friends, family, or a community can be a gratifying form of reinforcement. Praise, encouragement, and recognition from others tap into our social nature and provide additional motivation to keep going. Being part of a supportive network creates a positive feedback loop that sustains consistency. Another advantage of rewarding yourself is that it helps reduce stress and burnout. When you know a reward is coming, even tough days become more manageable. The anticipation of a break, a treat, or a fun activity can ease the mental load of consistent effort. This balance between work and reward keeps your energy and enthusiasm alive over the long haul. Lastly, designing your reward system requires some trial and error. What works for one person may not work for another, and your preferences may change over time. Stay flexible and adjust your rewards to keep them effective and motivating. The goal is to create a sustainable system that nurtures consistency by making the process enjoyable and rewarding. Consistency is not about waiting for motivation to strike or relying solely on willpower. It's about creating systems, habits, and mindsets that carry you forward, even when you don't feel like it. By forcing yourself to be consistent, you build momentum that transforms small, everyday actions into extraordinary results over time. Remember, success is not a single giant leap. It's the sum of countless steady steps taken day after day. So, embrace the power of persistence. Design routines that fit your life. Track your progress. Remind yourself to keep going, and celebrate every win along the way. When you commit to consistency, you're not just working toward a goal. You're cultivating resilience, discipline, and confidence that will serve you in every area of your life. No matter what you want to achieve, consistency is the key that unlocks your potential. Start today, keep moving forward, and watch how your dedicated efforts shape the future you desire. Because when you force yourself to be consistent, you become unstoppable.